Assalamu alaikum, my dear students. This is teacher Hadil from Taqarub International Schools, and today we are going to start with our reading lesson, inshallah. Today we are going to talk about the science fiction story. I want you to open page 28 from your student book action pack. Before we start, I want you to tell me, have you ever heard of such a term which is science fiction? Science fiction, this term between brackets and underline term. Yes, we have movies or we have a genre when we come to movies called science fiction. What is a genre? It is a type of literature, let's say. Science fiction is a type of literature also. Okay. Science fiction is based on imagination related to future. So when we say a science fiction, it is, let's say, we don't talk about facts, okay? We talk about imagination in the future. Now, inshallah, I'm going to read each paragraph and comment on the paragraph. Science fiction or sci-fi, this is the abbreviation of science fiction, which is sci-fi, okay? So pay attention. We pronounce it as sci-fi, okay? So sci-fi deals rationally with alternative possibilities to our everyday reality. Sci-fi uses scientific theories. So as we said before, we talk about future, okay? Notice science in the future, new scientific principles or new technologies as elements in the story. So we have elements for each story, okay? One of the elements of the science fiction stories is talking about scientific theories and new technologies, okay? A good science fiction story will include the following elements, which are a setting in the future or in a historical past that is different from the history we know. Now, what is the setting of the story? Yes, the setting is where the story takes place or where the event happen. Okay, so we have events happen in the future or events in the past. When we talk about the future, the events are scientific or technological. Okay, when we talk about the past, the events are going to be historical. Okay, but what is the difference between the non-fiction historical stories and the fictional historical stories or fiction historical stories? Yes, that's it. When we talk about irregular historical stories, we talk about the history that we know. But if we want to talk about a fictional story, okay, we talk about historical events that we don't know, or we make up a historical events. A setting in outer space including technology or scientific rules which contradict known scientific theories, okay? Or the second setting could be in the space. We talk about space, stories in the space. We have movies, a lot of movies talking about science fiction, such as Avatar. And I think you are all familiar with this movie. So we talk about the space or technology in the space, okay? And this technology contradicts our technology in the present or the technology we know. There are many arguments about which story was the first science fiction story. However, science fiction as we know it today started with Julius Verne. So Julius Verne is the one who wrote the first science fiction story, okay? Who wrote exciting adventure stories including amazingly accurate predictions about future science inform the Earth to the moon. So Julius talked about space. Okay, in his science fiction story, he talked about space. 100 years before the first moon landing, he predicted that astronauts would be weightless in space. So before, let's say, before anyone lands on the moon, okay, Julius talked about this event, okay, and he said that the astronauts would be weightless, okay. Now notice, before we reach to this invention, let's say, which is going to the moon or traveling to the moon, Julius predicted that astronauts will travel to the moon and they are going to be weightless, which means he predicted that up in the space we don't have gravity. No one knew this at the time. Why is science fiction so popular today? Is it just because the stories are exciting? Now I want you to answer this question based on your imagination, let's say. Why is science fiction so popular today? Yes, it could be. Thank you. Some people believe that it is popular because it is the literature of change. Now underline this sentence, literature of change. What do we mean by literature of change? Yes, I think maybe. Okay, now we have the regular literature which talked about poems, stories, short stories, novels, and so on. Okay, this is, let's say, not boring, I'm not gonna say boring, but a literature that we all know, okay, or a historical literature. But if we want to change or to have an exciting stories, we will talk about science fiction. There have been many technologies advances in the past few years, and it is natural for any culture to discuss these and future changes in stories. Some writers' predictions come true, and it is thrilling to read examples of what our lives might be. Now, what is the idea in this sentence? Yes, that sometimes when we read a science fiction story or watch a science fiction movie, we are gonna discover that this story or movie is related to our real life or our daily life, which makes it thrilling to read or to watch, okay? Now we have some vocabulary I'm going to ask you, and then we are going to answer them together, okay? Okay, now the first vocabulary is element. What does the word element mean? Yes, it is exactly one part of a whole work, okay? Or in Arabic, عنصر. The second one, setting, and we talked about it during the explanation. Setting, yes. You can find it in line 5. Element goes with C, which is the place and the time where a story takes a place. And we said it could be in the space, in the past, and so on. 3, contradict, in line 7. Yes. Yes, in Arabic. Yeah, yes, exactly. تناقض in Arabic we can say, which is go against known facts. The last one in line 17, which is thrilling. I think you are familiar with this one. Yes, very exciting, and it goes with C. We have finished our paragraph for today. Thank you for listening.